Right, I'm going to show you my cheat way of making a chicken ruby and also a vegetarian alternative, which is using the same sauce but with paneer and peas. And I'm using the Dishoom from Bombay with Love book. And here is the chicken ruby recipe on page 209. Now here it says marinate the chicken. That's entirely up to you whether you want to do that. I tend not to. Using the flavours of the sauce, and also because I add other things like peppers and onions, which I'll come back to. And the first thing you need to do is make the makahani sauce, which is in the back. So we move to the makahani sauce. So that's what I'm going to show you first. So I have my ingredients. There's the chicken, the paneer, the garlic ginger, salt, tomatoes. Now I use a mix of tinned tomatoes and fresh tomatoes, which I'll show you later, and the spices. Now I've used ground cardamom to avoid having the pods in the dish. The only solid spice I use is the cinnamon. So first step, I've taken 2 cloves of garlic, peeled them and diced it, and I've got rapeseed oil and put that into a small frying pan with enough oil so that the garlic, when it's added, is submerged, and medium heat. So I'll just let that oil warm up. So the garlic's added to the hot oil and it's there frying away, and I just need to keep an eye on it. It's probably only a couple of minutes. As soon as it starts turning brown, you need to take it off the heat, and I'll show you what to do next. It's very easy to burn the garlic, and burnt garlic doesn't taste very nice, so don't take your attention away from it. So now you can see it's starting to brown, so I'm going to turn the heat off and then just let that cook a little bit longer, maybe another minute or so, and then I'm going to drain it. So I've got a little tea strainer here, and I've got the pan of garlic, and now I'm just going to drain off the hot oil. Just capture the garlic there in the pan. Now that oil we'll use for later. It's got a nice garlic flavour to it as well. So now I've taken about 20 grams of garlic, so that's 3 plump cloves, maybe 4, and 20 grams of ginger, peeled them and roughly chopped them, and now putting them into the spice grinder. And I'm going to mash this up into a paste using the spice grinder. Otherwise you maybe want to use a mortar and pestle or something just to turn them into a paste. So there's the ginger and garlic for about 20 seconds in the spice grinder, nicely mashed up. So I'll put that to one side, and we'll now prepare the tomatoes. So for the tomatoes I'm using a mix of fresh and tinned. So here's the fresh ones. I've scored them. I want to peel them. So I've scored the skins, and I'm going to add them to a pan of hot water. There we go, pan of hot water. Put the tomatoes in and leave them for a minute or so until the skins start to peel. Now for tinned tomatoes, I'm using already whole peeled tomatoes from a tin. You can also use crushed tomatoes. So I'm going to add them to the jug and then blend them together with the fresh tomatoes. So they've been in the pan about 2 minutes. You can see the skins are starting to peel, so I'm going to turn the heat off. I'm going to remove the tomatoes and just let them cool on the chopping board for a couple of minutes, and then I'll peel them and halve them and add them to the tinned tomatoes that are already in the jug. So there's my tomatoes, the tinned tomatoes and the fresh tomatoes all. I'm going to blend these. Of course you could just use two tins of tomatoes rather than a mix of fresh or all fresh. I use a 50-50 approach here. So I'm just going to use the hand blender to mash these into a smooth paste. So there, with a hand blender, just now got a paste of tomatoes. So we're now ready to start the cooking. We've got our garlic paste, and we've got our fried garlic. So now it's time to start making the sauce with the spices. So I've got about half the oil I used to fry the garlic added back into a big pan, and I've added the bay leaves and the cinnamon stick. Because I'm using powdered cardamom, I won't add the cardamom at this stage. So as it says in the recipe, just let that fry for a minute or so, and then I'm going to add the garlic and ginger paste. So I've now added the garlic and ginger paste and just give it a stir. It says in the recipe book to cook for about 5 minutes. I think that's a bit too long. It starts to stick to the pan and burn at that point. So I usually give it about 2 minutes once it's just cooked a little. And then the next step will be to add the tomatoes. So I've added the tomatoes, and now I'm going to add the chili powder. I'm using Kashmiri chili because that's what I've got. And I'm also going to add at this point the ground cardamom and the salt. Now it says 2 teaspoonfuls of sea salt. I think that's a little too salty for my taste, so I only put 1 in. Obviously if you want it a little more salty, then add 2, but I think 1 is sufficient. So I've added 1 teaspoon of the sea salt, 1.5 of the Kashmiri chili, and 1/4 teaspoon of the ground cardamom. So now I'm just going to stir that in, and it's spitting a little, but that's fine. You want to reduce this now, so turn the heat up a little, and as it says, let it cook away for about 20 minutes until it reduces by about half. So while the sauce is reducing, I'm going to get the paneer. So here's a block of paneer, it's about 250 grams. I'm going to just create some cubes and fry that. So I've got a frying pan again with a layer of canola oil, rapeseed oil, heating away there on a medium heat. I've cubed up the paneer, and we're just going to fry that in the pan, just so that it's browned on all sides. That'll take about 5 minutes. I'll show you the results. So we've been going about 10 minutes, and the tomato is reducing nicely. The paneer's in the pan, just cooking on one side, and just turn it over once it starts to brown. Make sure we try and brown as many sides as we can. So there's paneer cubes, just browning them off, at least 2 sides. It's a little tricky to do all sides of the cubes, but as long as you get 2 of them nice and crisp, and then we'll take that off the heat and put it to one side. So I've taken a bowl, put some kitchen paper in it, and I've just added the paneer, and that's just to dry off the oil. So we'll leave that to one side while the sauce continues to cook. And what I'm now going to do is just prepare some vegetables to go with the chicken ruby. Again, this is a personal choice. I've got pepper and onion, and I'm just going to fry those in the same pan as I did the paneer, and get them ready in advance. So now we're just frying the onion and the pepper. You could of course use a bigger pan, just saving on a bit on the washing up. I'm just going to let that cook, and I'll put it to one side once ready. We're nearly done with the tomatoes. Yeah, it looks like it's just about done. So the tomatoes have been going for about 20 minutes. I think they're a nice consistency now, not too dry, not too wet. I've now just added the about 30 grams of butter, and I'm just going to stir that until it's melted in. So the butter is melted in, and I need to add the other spices and the honey and the sugar. So I've got the sugar and the garlic we fried earlier, cumin, garam masala, the dill, the fenugreek, and the honey. So I'm just going to add them as per the recipe in the book. Now for the fenugreek, I'm just using ground fenugreek that you can get, well, this one's from Tesco. And for the dill, I'm just using dried dill. So I've added all the additional spices and the honey and sugar, and just going to let that cook. It says 15 minutes. Again, I'd probably leave it for about half that, so it doesn't reduce too much. And then for the peppers and the onions, they're now cooked, so I've again put them in a bowl with some kitchen paper just to dry off the excess oil. So now for the chicken, I've taken 2 chicken breasts and I've cut them into about 2-3 centimeter chunks. I'm just going to kind of brown these off, so I'm just frying them in a nice clean fresh frying pan with a bit of rapeseed oil and just kind of, well, not brown them but white them all over before adding to the pan later. But this has now been going for another about 10 minutes, so I'm going to stop and add the yogurt, cream and lime juice. Now why am I adding yogurt and lime juice that isn't in the macaroni sauce recipe? That's because in the chicken ruby it's part of the marinade. Now because I haven't marinated the chicken, you still want some of those flavours, so I'm just going to add a little bit of lime juice, a little bit of yogurt and then the cream. So just a bottle of lime juice. I'm just going to add a couple of little squeeze there. I'm using Greek yogurt. You can just use any natural yogurt, preferably homemade, but we seem to be out of homemade. So I've got a kind of heaped spoonful of yogurt that I'm adding to the sauce. I'll stir in before we add the cream. Just let that warm up, and now we see the chicken just, as I say, not browning over but whitening over on all sides. Once that's done, I'll turn the heat off. So now the cream, it's a single cream, less flat than double cream, so less likely to split. So in Switzerland it's blue, 25%, and it's got a little chef's hat on to help you. So it says about 80 mils. I mean, I'm just going to add probably a bit more than that, a little, about 100. And then just stir that in, and there's the sauce looking lovely. And so we're just going to heat that through. Got it on a medium heat, just like that until it spits a little, and then we're going to ready to split this so that we can make the chicken ruby on one side and the paneer with peas on the other side. So I've removed the cinnamon stick and the bay leaves, so you don't have to worry about them after, and I've split the sauce into two. So you've got the sauce in the original pan, transferred half of it to the other pan, and now what I'm going to do is take the wiped off chicken. So there you see it. It's don't worry if some of the bits are still not quite whited off, and we're going to add this to the pan. Try and avoid adding the fat. We're going to let the chicken cook. So we've added the chicken. So what I'm going to do is now just cover it. It's maybe could be a little looser, so I might add a little bit of water. But let's see, after the chicken's cooked, it might release some of the juices. For the other one, I've heated the sauce. I'm going to add the paneer to this, and then the peas. So I've added the fried paneer and I've added some frozen peas. The sauce is looking a little thick, so I'm just put the kettle on and I'm going to add a little bit of hot water once that's heated up. Once the chicken's cooked a little, I will then add the peppers and the onions to the chicken ruby. Of course, like I say, that's a personal choice. I like a little bit more than just chicken in my chicken ruby, but you don't have to add these if you don't want to. So both sauces are looking a little thick, so what I've just boiled the kettle, not quite to boiling, so just add a little bit of water just to loosen that up, and again here just to loosen it up a wee bit. Okay, so the chicken's been cooking for about 10 minutes, that's all it really needs. So I've added in the peppers and the onions. That just needs to warm through, so another 2 or 3 minutes and it's ready. And the paneer with the peas in it is also ready. So enjoy. That's how easy it is to make. And look, it's not too oily. And if the seasoning's not quite right, if you need a bit more salt, you can always add more. Enjoy. So to finish, in the recipe book there is a garnish. Feel free to use it. We serve the ruby with rice, naan bread and onion bhajis. But if you want to do the garnish, then feel free. It explains exactly how to do it in the book. So that's me. Enjoy!